For the commodity part, that's always been a key aspect of war. I mean, during World War II, secure over oil fields was a key part of it. That's why there were a significant amount of battles, even in the European theater outside of Europe. A lot of it was to secure certain energy supplies, and so that's not new. It is relatively new to have this level of financial warfare, right? So, for example, freezing reserves, and this kind of begs the question of how much Putin anticipated, because they did, make themselves sanction resistant by focusing on gold and de-dollarizing as much as possible. But they did have a very big focus on euro-denominated assets. And maybe he didn't expect that they would freeze the euro-denominated assets. It's hard to say for sure. But essentially, several $100 billion of Russian reserves have been frozen by the West, by these sanctions. And that is equal to several years worth of military spending for Russia. I mean, it's a huge percentage of their GDP, a huge multiple of their annual military spend. And so it's already been an extraordinarily expensive war for Russia to fight, let alone the devaluation of the ruble, the decimation of Russian savings, the stock, their stock market being imploded. Then there's also just the reserves themselves being frozen. And that kind of shows this level of financial warfare that's happening. And, their counterpoint is, hey, we control like a significant minority of commodities, both for energy and also even for green tech. Nickel, for example, is absolutely key for battery technologies as we currently know it. And so it's kind of this war between what's going to happen first. Is Russia's financial crisis going to kick in faster than Europe and the rest of the world's commodity crisis? And we're kind of in this race between, who can harm each other the fastest. While they're not having a kinetic war between each other. The kinetic war is focused in Ukraine, but these greater powers are focusing on this financial and commodity war in the background of the actual physical warfare.
The inflation figures came in at 7.9. Is it 7.9%? I think yesterday. The CPI figures. Are those figures, would they already have been arrived at prior to these events, or do they include these events?
So these pretty much would have already been arrived at prior to these events for the most part. And so it's really kind of the next few prints that I think are going to be heavily impacted by these. And so, for example, I've been on the inflationary side, but I've also been on the side that, we might start peaking by the second quarter, right? That inflation might not normalize, but that it could kind of top out and chop around for a period of time. And the caveat that I say, okay, what is the risk that's not correct? What is the risk that inflation just keeps soaring higher? And it would be some sort of energy shortage, some sort of key thing like that. And so this war as a catalyst certainly adds fuel to the inflationary fire, right? So we already had inflation from money printing, from other shortages going into this. And now that you have an acceleration of commodity shortages and bifurcation of global supply chains, that should add further fuel to the inflationary fire. And so, it kind of remains to be seen how long this is going to go. But we start approaching more like the 70s at this point in terms of energy security and overall inflationary levels. And one thing I pointed out recently is that we have the most negative real yields on say short-term U.S. Treasuries since 1951. Right, so currency is getting devalued at a rate that has not been seen for quite a long time, and that's using the official numbers.
What is the kind of range of inflation numbers we could see maybe next month? Do you think we could be going into double-digit inflation? Could we go into 15% inflation? Because when I look at the price rises for various things within the supermarkets, I look at the increase in petrol prices. We're not talking about 5-6% inflation prices here. We're talking about things that are going up 10%, 20%, 30%.
So I think the official numbers, so next month, using that specific time frame, next month or two, I don't think you'll see a gigantic gap, because if you look at the way the calculation works, a very big chunk of it is actually home, right? So there's owner's equivalent rent and things like healthcare, right? So those are unlikely to change rapidly in a month. If anything, we're seeing kind of home prices sort of kind of level out to some extent. They're cooling off compared to what they were doing over the past 2 years. And so there's a big chunk of the CPI index that won't change much. Now, the part that is going to change a lot is the food and the energy, right? So that's the part that's going to be, spiking up by double-digit percentages. And that's where everyone kind of has their own unique inflation basket. So the official CPI number, it'll be hot, but it might not be as high as you think. But then, for example, let's say you're someone, your house is paid off and you have a pretty tight monthly budget. Maybe you're living on fixed income, for example. So obviously a big chunk of what you spend on goes towards food and energy. So someone in that situation, their effective inflation rate would be double digits. And so I think the quote unquote real numbers will be, at least in the low double digits. I wouldn't expect to see the official numbers show double digits right away. But if, the longer this goes on, you could hit double digit official CPI in the US.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.